Welcome back. This is BL Stories for You. I'm an indie author dedicated to original BL storytelling. From high school drama to fantasy worlds, everything you hear is written by me. I'm so glad you're here for this journey. Let's begin.
That night, Kenar saddled his horse and rode out alone. The air was cold, but he welcomed it. Anything was better than staying in his chambers, with his mind spinning out of control. Polar's hut glowed faintly between the trees. As soon as Kenar dismounted, the door creaked open. Well, Polar said, wearing his usual crooked grin. To what do I owe the pleasure of a midnight visit from the great Emperor of Umberith? Kenar didn't return the smile. He walked past him, his boots heavy against the wooden floor. Polar's grin faded almost immediately. He muttered. There's something off about you. You always look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, but this time it's different. Kenar didn't bother denying it. How is Nelo? Polar folded his arms. Aggressive, he said honestly. Woke up swinging. Nearly took my head off. I had to sedate him again. Kenar frowned. Did he say anything? Yes, Polar replied. He kept calling out a name. Aarhiya. Kenar stiffened. He was convinced this Aarhiya is his master, Polar continued. Kept yelling Your Highness and all sorts of dramatic things. Polar shrugged. But that's the strange part. Makes you wonder who Lenreya really is to him. Then Polar's eyes lit up with mischief. Oh, he said slowly, snapping his fingers. I get it now. Lovers. Kenar shot him a sharp look. What? Star-crossed lovers, Polar went on, clearly enjoying himself. Trying to escape together. Risking everything for love. Very poetic, honestly. Stop it, Kenar snapped, irritation flashing across his face. But Polar, completely oblivious or pretending to be, kept talking. I mean the way Lenreya looked when Nelo was brought in? I've seen warriors less devoted. That woman was terrified. And she's enduring your lovely training sessions just to see him again. That was it. Stop talking, Kenar barked. His voice echoed through the hut. Polar froze. Then his eyes narrowed, not in fear but curiosity. Ah, he said softly. There it is. Kenar turned away, his fists clenched. You don't react like this over nothing, Polar said. You get prickly every time that name comes up. Care to explain, Your Majesty? There was a long pause. Then Kenar exhaled sharply, like a man surrendering a battle he'd already lost. She kissed me, he said. Polar blinked. She what? Kenar ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. It wasn't planned. She was drunk. And it... He stopped, swallowing. It stirred my energy. The one I sealed years ago. It loosened. Polar stared at him, stunned. I've never wanted anyone the way I want her, Kenar admitted quietly. And that terrifies me. A laugh suddenly broke the tension. Kenar turned, furious. Polar's eyes were bright with amusement. Oh, I knew it, he said, chuckling. I knew it. Kenar glared at him. You find this funny? Polar raised his hands in surrender. I'm just saying. I'm not surprised. I knew it from the start. Lenreya's arrival was bound to shake your entire existence. The laughter faded, leaving the truth hanging heavy in the air. Polar studied Kenar for a long moment. His playful grin softened into something gentler. So, he asked quietly, what do you plan to do now? Kenar didn't answer right away. He looked away, jaw tight. Polar spoke again, softer this time, almost encouraging. There's nothing wrong with wanting someone, he said. You've lived like stone your whole life, Kenar. No cracks. No worms. I'm actually glad to see you feel something, for once. Kenar's head snapped up. That's exactly the problem, he replied. His voice was low and controlled but sharp at the edges. Feelings make people weak. They make you hesitate when you should strike. They make you careless. Polar opened his mouth, but Kenar continued. My enemies don't need weapons if they know someone has my heart, he said. They'll use that person against me. Love is a weakness. And I can't afford weaknesses. Silence settled between them, broken only by the crackle of the fire. That's why I came, Kenar finally said. I need the antidote. The strong one. Polar straightened. The love suppressant? Kenar nodded. Lenreya will be around me constantly. She's my personal maid now. I'm training her myself. His fingers curled slowly into a fist. I don't want desire, he said. Not even a trace of it. Polar exhaled, clearly uneasy. You know those mixtures don't erase feelings. They only bury them. Burying them is enough, Kenar said flatly. Polar hesitated. He searched Kenar's face, hoping for doubt, for a crack he could reason with. But Kenar's expression had already hardened. The walls were back in place. Kenar, Polar said carefully, when love finds you, no antidote in this forest can truly stop it. Kenar didn't respond. He simply held out his hand. After a long pause, Polar turned away and retrieved a small vial from a wooden shelf. He placed it in Kenar's palm, his reluctance obvious. I hope you're wrong, Polar muttered. And I hope you don't regret this. Kenar closed his fingers around the vial. Thank you, he said, already stepping back. Without another word, he turned and walked out into the night. The sound of his horse faded slowly into the forest. Polar remained where he was, staring after him. His shoulders slumped. His usual humor didn't return. And for a brief moment, his eyes grew distant, heavy with memory. Just as Polar turned to head back to his lab, a sudden chill ran down his spine. Cold metal pressed against his throat. Don't move, a voice growled behind him. Who are you, and how did I get here? Polar froze, only long enough to assess the situation. He felt the tension in the arm holding the knife. The uneven breathing. Injured. Weak. But still dangerous. Before Nelo could react, Polar moved. In one swift motion, he twisted his body, knocked the knife from Nelo's hand, and flipped him onto the ground. The blade skidded across the floor as Polar pinned him down, his forearm pressing lightly against Nelo's chest. Not enough to hurt. Just enough to keep him still. Nelo snarled, struggling beneath him. But instead of anger, Polar's lips curved into a slow, impressed smile. Well, Polar said casually, glancing down at him, you wake up violent and handsome? That hardly seems fair. Nelo blinked, thrown completely off guard. What? He snapped, then bared his fangs fully, eyes flashing. Get off me, you strange man. No. Where am I? Polar chuckled, entirely unfazed. Feisty too. Guts. Kenar really did bring me an interesting one. Nelo's ears burned with embarrassment. With a sudden burst of strength, he shoved Polar away and scrambled to his feet, backing away defensively. Answer me, Nelo demanded. Where is this place? Polar raised both hands slowly, palms open. Easy, he said. No one's trying to hurt you. Nelo didn't relax. His posture remained tense, feral, ready to strike again. Fine Polar side. I'll explain everything. But first. His eyes flicked to Nelo's unsteady stance, the faint tremor in his limbs. You need to eat. Nelo frowned. I don't need anything from you. Polar arched a brow. You do if you want to stay alive. You're barely standing. Your body's still recovering. Nelo hesitated. Polar's voice softened. You were close to dying when they brought you here. If I hadn't stepped in, you wouldn't have woken up at all. The words landed heavier than any blow. Nelo's jaw tightened. He looked away, struggling internally. You saved me? He asked quietly. Polar nodded. Whether you like me or not. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Nelo exhaled through his nose and lowered his guard. Just a little. Fine, he muttered. But if you lie to me, you'll stab me again? Polar finished with a grin. Deal. He turned toward the kitchen, glancing back over his shoulder. Come on. Answers sound better on a full stomach. After a brief hesitation, Nelo followed. Todi practically dragged Aarhiya across the courtyard, stopping only when they reached the front of the palace. Why are we waiting here? Aarhiya asked, pulling his arm free. His voice was low, uneasy. I don't understand. Todi sighed like the answer should have been obvious. You're Kenar's new personal maid now. That means wherever he goes you're nearby. Always. You cater to his needs before he even has to ask. Aarhiya swallowed. The words personal maid settled heavily in his chest. All he could think about was Kenar's earlier warning, keep your distance, star. Standing here like this already felt like breaking a rule. I don't think he wants that, Aarhiya muttered. Todi shot him a look. What he wants and what his position demands aren't always the same. Before Aarhiya could respond, the sound of hooves echoed through the open gates. Kenar had returned. He dismounted and walked toward the palace without slowing. But his eyes flicked briefly to the side, and there Aarhiya was standing beside Todi. Kenar stiffened. He said nothing. He only nodded to Todi and continued inside. Aarhiya and Todi followed, their footsteps echoing behind him. Kenar kept his pace steady, shoulders tense, clearly making an effort not to acknowledge Aarhiya's presence. The silence stretched all the way to his chambers. Once inside, Todi clapped her hands lightly. It's time for your royal bath. Then she turned to Aarhiya and added casually, help him undress. The words hit both of them at the same time. What? Aarhiya blurted out. Kenar froze. I can't, Aarhiya said quickly, shaking his head. I can't touch the Emperor's body. That's not. What do you mean she has to undress me? Kenar snapped. Toda frowned, genuinely confused, and turned to him. Your Majesty, forgive me, but what's going on? Since when are you sensitive about this? She tilted her head, studying him. You never cared before. You used to say bodies were just bodies. You'd walk around half-dressed if you felt like it. Kenar's jaw tightened. And besides, Todi added, gesturing toward Aarhiya, she's just a maid. What's changed? For a moment, Kenar didn't answer. Then, as if forcing himself, he exhaled. It's fine, he said flatly. Do it. Aarhiya hesitated, then stepped forward. The air in the room grew heavy as he carefully began removing Kenar's outer garments. His hands trembled despite his effort to stay calm. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them looked at the other. But when their eyes finally met, the room seemed to still. Something unspoken passed between them, too intense, too sudden. They forgot where they were. Forgot who was watching. Todi cleared her throat loudly. Your Majesty, you are undressed now. They both startled, breaking eye contact at once. Kenar stood there with his garments lowered, tension coiled tightly between them, thick enough to be felt even in the silence. Still a little lightheaded from how close they'd been, Aarhiya barely had time to steady himself before Todi spoke again. Prepare the Emperor's bath. Aarhiya blinked. The bath? Todi was already walking ahead. Yes, call me. They entered the bathing chamber. Steam hung softly in the air, and the water in the wide stone bath was already warm, faint ripples moving across its surface. Todi handed Aarhiya a small bowl filled with pale red flower petals. Add these, she instructed. Aarhiya stepped closer and scattered the petals into the water. They floated briefly before slowly sinking, releasing a gentle, calming scent. His hands trembled just slightly as he finished. When everything was ready, Kenar stepped forward and entered the bath. Aarhiya froze. The sight of him, relaxed, composed, warm water tracing the sharp lines of his body, hit harder than Aarhiya expected. Kenar looked almost unreal, effortlessly handsome, calm in a way that made Aarhiya's chest tighten. Heat rushed through him before he could stop it. He turned his eyes away immediately. Don't, he warned himself, don't let your Hera nature take over. It's nothing. You don't find that man attractive. He fixed his gaze on the tiled floor, forcing his breathing to slow, to steady. Elsewhere, deep in the forest, Polar and Nelo sat across from each other over a simple meal. The atmosphere was quieter now, more settled. Polar spoke first, filling the silence. He told Nelo everything, how Emperor Kaenar had found him barely alive, how he'd been brought here to recover. He explained the deal Kenar had made with Aarhiya, in exchange for freedom. If he wants to see you again, Polar said calmly, getting stronger is the only way. Nelo listened, his expression darkening as the pieces finally fell into place. When Polar finished, Nelo lowered his gaze. Thank you, he said quietly, for saving me, for taking care of me. Then he looked up again, eyes sharp. But none of that changes anything, Nelo said firmly. I'm getting him out of that palace. I'm taking him home. Polar frowned. Him? Are you talking about Lenreya? But she's a woman. Nelo stiffened, realizing his mistake. I mean Lenreya. I meant Lenreya. Polar studied him for a moment, then let it go. Either way, he said, leaving Umbereth won't be that easy. No one gets out without the Emperor's approval. Nelo pushed his chair back anyway. I don't care. He stood, and immediately collapsed. Polar was on his feet in an instant, catching him before he hit the floor. With ease, he lifted Nelo into his arms. Nelo stared up at him, stunned. Polar smirked. For a dragon, you're pretty weak. Nelo opened his mouth to protest, but Polar was already walking. You can plan all the escapes you want once you're better, he said casually. Until then, you're stuck with me. Nelo said nothing. He simply lay there, flustered, quiet, watching as Polar carried him to his room, laid him on the bed, and moved around with practiced ease, preparing medicine. His thoughts were far louder than his voice. Kenar stepped out of the bath with an uneasy feeling crawling beneath his skin. He could sense Aarhiya's presence behind him, even without turning around. It wasn't that Aarhiya was staring, at least not openly, but Kenar felt it all the same. a quiet awareness that refused to fade. Under Toadi's watchful eye, there was no avoiding what came next. Aarhiya moved closer to help him dress, and the air between them immediately grew heavy. Kenar kept his gaze fixed straight ahead, jaw tight, while Aarhiya focused a little too hard on the task, his fingers fumbling slightly as he adjusted Kenar's robe. Neither of them spoke. When the final tie was secured and Aarhiya finally stepped back, the relief was almost physical. They both breathed easier, as if they had just survived something far more exhausting than getting dressed. Toady clapped her hands lightly. "Dinner time, Your Majesty." In Kenar's private dining area, quiet and secluded as always, the table was already set. As protocol demanded, the food taster stepped forward first, sampling each dish carefully before signaling that it was safe. Only then did Kenar begin to eat. Halfway through the meal, a bit of sauce smeared against the corner of his lips. Toady noticed immediately. "Lenreya," she said casually. "Clean His Majesty's lips." Aarhiya froze, just for a fraction of a second, then reached for a napkin and stepped closer. His hand trembled as he lifted it. And when he gently wiped Kenar's lips, the tension between them became almost unbearable. The contact was brief, harmless, yet it felt like too much. Kenar's ears warmed. His chest tightened. "That's enough," he snapped suddenly, pushing the napkin away. "I can clean my own lips. I'm not a child." The room fell silent. Toady stared at him, genuinely confused. "Your Majesty, you never minded when the other personal maids did it." Kenar avoided Aarhiya's eyes as he took the napkin himself. "I mind now." He wiped his lips quickly and continued eating as if nothing had happened, though the stiffness in his posture told a very different story. That night, Kenar finally settled into his room, the tension of the day still clinging to his muscles. He uncorked the vial Polar had given him, the love antidote, and drank it, letting the bitter liquid slide down his throat. Almost immediately, a sense of calm washed over him. It felt as though a weight that had pressed on his chest for years was finally lifted. For the first time in days, his thoughts were quiet. For a moment, Aarhiya didn't cross his mind at all. Kenar allowed himself to sink into the relief of solitude. Then, in the stillness of the room, a voice broke through. "I'm here as promised," Aarhiya said softly, stepping into the chamber. "To play for you." Kenar raised a brow, surprised, but he didn't protest. He motioned for Aarhiya to sit. Aarhiya obeyed, keeping a respectful distance. His posture was straight, his hands resting lightly over his knees. His gaze drifted to the floor for a moment, then flicked upward. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "in court today the elders called you a demon." Why would they say that?" Kenar's eyes darkened. Annoyance flashed across his face. "Why would I tell you that?" he snapped, leaning back. "We are not close. Don't forget, you are my maid. My student." He paused, his voice sharpening. "And as such, I do not indulge in gossip with you. Now, start playing." Aarhiya's lower lip pouted in quiet protest, but he quickly masked it. With a small flourish of his fingers, his flute appeared, shimmering faintly under the moonlight spilling through the window. He lifted it to his lips. The music that followed was soft, pure, comforting. It curled through the room like a gentle breeze. Far away, deep within the palace's hidden depths, Lenreya sat in her secret chamber. She hunched over a massive cauldron filled with black water, her lips moving in low, hissing murmurs as she wove a curse meant to drag Kenar into nightmares. The surface of the water rippled unnaturally. Shadows stretched along the walls, creeping toward the palace like living tendrils. Kenar's mind could not fully resist the curse. His breathing quickened as he slipped into a dream he did not want to have. His kingdom was consumed by thick, choking darkness, swallowing the streets, the gardens, even the palace itself. He ran through the chaos, hair disheveled, calling for his mother. Then he saw her, walking calmly into a wall of fire. "Mother!" he screamed, reaching for her. She didn't hear him. She didn't respond. Panic clawed at his chest. Then, a music. Soft, familiar, ethereal. The faint notes of a flute drifted into the nightmare, slicing through the darkness like a lifeline. Each note anchored him, pulling him back from the suffocating shadows Lenreya had conjured. In the real world, Aarhiya watched helplessly as Kenar writhed in his sleep. He shook him gently, called his name. Nothing worked. Then Aarhiya remembered Kenar's words, how the flute helped him through his nightmares. Heart pounding, Aarhiya lifted his bamboo flute and began to play. The notes were soft at first, then steady, calm, deliberate. The sound filled the room like sunlight piercing storm clouds, and somehow, it reached Kenar even in the depths of his nightmare. Inside the dream, Kenar blinked as the darkness began to fade. Golden sunlight spilled across his kingdom, chasing away the shadows. And there in the distance stood a figure. A beautiful man, regal and serene. Long white hair flowing like silk. Piercing blue eyes that seemed to see straight into him. He wore a white hanfu that shimmered softly. In his hands, a bamboo flute. Lenreya's flute. The man smiled. Without hesitation, Kenar reached for him. Their hands met, and Kenar held on tight. The darkness vanished instantly, replaced by warm, golden light. The kingdom bloomed with life once more. But the brightest light of all was the man before him. Smiling, playing the flute, radiating calm and safety. Back in reality, Aarhiya knelt beside the bed, gripping Kenar's hand. Slowly, the tension left Kenar's body. His breathing deepened. His expression softened. A small, relieved smile touched Aarhiya's lips. The nightmare was over. Far away in her dark chamber, Lenreya's eyes widened in horror. She coughed, blood staining her lips as her hands trembled over the cauldron. Impossible, she hissed. Her curse had been completely undone. She was powerless. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more episodes.